I know Sheryl for a while. She showed up at one of our meetings in the very beginning here in Rockland because she couldn't find a tea party for her area, so she decided to start one. Randy is her husband, and they... What?
My first husband.
I don't know. They live in Bloomingburg, New York for the past 16 years. They have 5 children. They are registered Republicans who have always voted Republican. However, the last election in November '09, they found themselves checking the candidates more closely who were asking for their vote. And their hope is to see the restoration of true conservative values and principles to our government and leaders, regardless of party. That's how I feel too. Sheryl and Randy attended the D.C. 9/12 rally with the other 1.7 million Americans demanding their voice be heard. They went back to D.C. for the House call on November 5th and walked the halls talking to their congressmen and voicing their concerns. They sent emails and faxes, most of them were returned to them, and called their representatives, but to no avail. They were ignored, like many other millions of people who did that. They walked the streets of New York City with Operation Can You Hear Us Now, with signs and flags asking the media to report the truth. They attended smaller local rallies opposing the health care bill, and stood with the Gathering of Eagles, another organization, in support of our troops. In response to the anti-war protesters at West Point, the night President Obama spoke there, they were among a handful of patriots to stand peacefully with their flags and signs in support of our troops. Recently, they made the hard decision to not attend the 9/11 Never Forget rally in New York City in opposition to the scheduled terrorist trial in New York City. Their hearts wanted to go to the city and stand with the others, but they realized that although rallies are great, the only real power any citizen has is the power of the vote. Instead, they attended a local meeting where they met a prospective Republican candidate for Congress in their district and networked with other concerned citizens in the area. They realize this country is on a dangerous precipice and feel that we, as free citizens, have a choice to make. We either duck our heads and hope the insanity stops on its own, or we step out boldly to educate and encourage others to get involved. If you agree, they are asking you to join them and us in this movement. They currently hold monthly meetups on various dates in their area, and they're looking forward to meeting all of our members and networking here. They're going to be speaking tonight on a very important subject, which is the Taxpayer Line, that we have petitions out in the front for you to sign for some of the candidates, and they're going to explain what all that's about, and please feel free to ask them any questions you might have. So let's give a big hand to Randy. Well, hello. Nice to meet you. I cannot believe, it was just a few short months ago, I was coming to a meeting with Rally for America and begging for somebody to help me. I think my husband was traveling, somebody to help us find a group in Orange and Sullivan. And do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Help me! I can't find a group. And now look, we do have a thriving group up there. We've had 2 main rallies. Our first rally was the Taxpayer Rally. We had 500 people come to that, and we just had another one we called Stop the Madness Rally, and that has actually become our mantra now, to stop the madness. We're working in our community. A lot of our group would like us to be more educational right now, but Randy and I have taken a stand. We're in an election cycle. This is probably one of the most important elections of my lifetime, and so we have transitioned as a couple. We tell people that Orange Sullivan 9/12 Tea Party does not endorse candidates as a group. We honor all of our members in that, but New York Joe Citizen Sheryl Thomas, I endorse candidates. My husband, New York Joe Citizen Randy Thomas, endorses candidates. There are 3 right now that we're helping. A man running for our Congress in our district, George Phillips, and then Mr. Palladino and Gary Bernstein.
We vetted most of them. Tomorrow night we will have Carl Palladino back in Goshen at the Goshen Comfort Inn and Suites for a more serious Q&A with him, and then David Malpass we have not seen. A lot of the Tea Party that we've talked to are a little concerned about David Malpass being on the ticket, the Taxpayers Party ticket. They asked me to have him come so they could ask him questions, and that's what we're going to do. So that's tomorrow. I would like to just say that I'm just a stay-at-home mom. I am not a politician. I've never been politically active until I went to D.C. Randy and I were supposed to go to the Yankee game that night, the night before 9/12, and we were like...
Derek Jeter was breaking the record.
Yeah. So we listened to the Yankee game on the way down to D.C., and that experience changed our life. And I think that what you're seeing is a lot of those people came back from D.C. They went into their communities all across the country and they started groups. There was just something that happened. If you can get to D.C. or even Glenn Beck's this year, I highly recommend it. Just the networking, the bonding, that whatever that emotional experience is that you have of connecting with people and you're not alone is really significant. I want to start with a proverb. There's a proverb, and it's 18:13, and I'm going to have to use my glasses because I'm like, I can't see. But it says, "He who answers a matter before he hears it, it is folly and shame to him." And I think that's a great proverb for what I'm going to be talking about. And also, Proverbs 18:17 says, "The first to plead his case seems right until his neighbor comes and examines him." There is a lot going on in the Tea Party movement concerning the Taxpayers Line. I, as a leader, get a lot of back and forth, want to stick candidates in a box and have them do certain things. And so I've been talking to Lynn about the Taxpayer Line. Randy and I, like I said, we vetted the candidates. We could come on board with some of these, and Carl happens to be one of them, and Carl has now put up the Taxpayers Party line. So obviously we've been petitioning, collecting petitions. We put up what we call the 1,000 Signature Challenge. I don't know if any of you caught that on Facebook or went around the groups. And we challenged all the counties in New York State to collect 1,000 signatures for that Taxpayers Line. And we have collected our 1,000 signatures, I'm happy to say, and we worked very hard for it. So we'll be presenting that to Carl and David tomorrow night, that 1,000 signature for them for the Taxpayers Line. I'd like to ask you a question. I'd like to know how many of you in here believe that Carl Palladino will win the Republican primary? I do. Okay. Just based on the number of hands that went up, I would have to say that that means that Carl Palladino is a viable Republican candidate, and that there's enough of us that believe that he will win the primary. If you're a registered Republican or conservative and you believe that Carl will win the primary, I would like to know, are you not as equally concerned that should Republican candidate Rick Blasio, if he does not win the primary, he has pledged to the conservative chairman that he will stay and continue on the conservative line against Mr. Palladino. So a lot of people send me emails. They're concerned about Carl. Well, if he doesn't win the Republican primary, what's he going to do? Is he going to stay on the Taxpayer Line and split the vote, split the ticket? Okay. How is it that the grassroots seems to be so concerned that Carl Palladino will split the vote when the designated Republican nominee, which is Rick Blasio, has vowed that he will split the vote? So what I'm doing right now, and that's why I started with the Proverbs, is I'm presenting a little bit different perspective. I'm not a politician. I don't understand a lot about this thing. Most Tea Party people like me, we are learning daily. And it's a wonderful network because we challenge one another and we keep each other balanced. And if I don't know something, somebody else will send me something. This is what you need to know. And so, but I would like to give you a little different perspective. If Blasio stays on the conservative line, he will steal votes from the Republican line and the tax line. So we're not talking about anything different here. This makes no sense to say that it's okay for Rick Blasio to do that and steal votes should Carl Palladino win the primary from a legitimate Republican. and then turn around to Mr. Palladino and say, I will not support you if you continue to run on that taxpayer line should you lose the Republican nomination. To me, that makes no sense. Okay, so, and while we're on the subject, why is it okay for Rick Blasio to run on the conservative line anyway? What is conservative really about Rick Blasio? To me, so many of the things when I looked over the conservative platform, he didn't line up with. I thought, and I think that you stated it, I naively thought that the Republican Party was conservative. I thought the Conservative Party was more conservative than the Republican Party. And what we're finding out is that's not true. And I agree with what Janine said. There are these backroom deals going on, and there are these fixes going on. To me, what Carl has done is make a bold move to actually give the Tea Party and the New York Joe citizen a place to go, a place to vote, and an identity. And that's how I see it. So what's going on right now is a fight for power. And it's not so much a fight for party as it is a fight for power. But it's being used under the guise of this is about we've got to support the parties. But it's more about power. For Tea Party people, we're principled people, I thought. I thought that's what this movement was about, that we were fighting against the party and we were fighting against the power of corruption in the parties. And it was on principle that we did what we're doing, our convictions about what we expect in these candidates. And I thought that that's what we are fighting for. So it's been a little puzzling to me the amount of emails that I've gotten from people that are upset by what Carl Palladino is doing and by what he's attempting to do. So I don't know if some of you remember the Skosna-Fava deal up in CD 23. Okay, the Republicans threw her $1 million. She was more liberal than the Democrat. She turned around and endorsed the Democrat up there. And this is what is going on in the parties here. And so, my understanding from researching this, there's 5 official parties, the Republican, Democrat, Independent, Conservative, and Working Family. An official party does not become a party on the ballot unless, I believe, a governor candidate is running on that party line and it collects 50,000 votes. All right, I was at the convention. Well, let me just say, we found this year that the registration with any party other than the 2 main parties, Republican or Democrat, disenfranchised Tea Party people. I don't know if you found that to be true. I have a lot of people in my group that were registered conservatives. They're not going to be able to vote in this primary, even though they're working their tails off to see, helping us to see that Carl Palladino was able to primary. Now, it's my understanding, too, that there has not been a Republican primary for governor since 1994. I think I have my facts right, which is like 16 years. That's amazing. The Tea Party forced a GOP primary in this state. I want to encourage you with that. I get a lot of naysaying, but that's a positive. That says we are a force to be reckoned with, that we could get out and beat the streets and get 28,000 votes, 28,000 signatures, to see him get on that line. This is history, as far as I'm concerned, that we're doing right now, those that are involved in that. When you get to the voter booth, you can decide who you want to vote for. But the grassroots is attempting to try to get grassroots candidates on the ballot. Now, what kind of candidates are the Republican and Conservative parties putting up? And some of these guys may be nice, but we got to look at what they're running on. And as Janine said, it's Janine, right? Janine and Lynn say, we're realizing as we start to study these candidates that they're really not upholding their party values, their platforms. They're really not. And so far, they've been able to get away from it because they didn't have millions of people marching into their offices in D.C. or in Albany or whatever, demanding that they uphold these things. And so the grassroots is an ideology, it's not a party, but we're thrown now together in this big race that's going on. And what we have to do is convince Republicans that it's not okay to endorse non-conservative candidates.